447, meeting of the Labor Relations Committee meeting. Today we have a number of items on the agenda. Number one being, the major one being the organizational assessment by Bryn Person. Welcome. Thank you for the report, and we're looking forward to your presentation. This is not a public hearing. I just want to remind everybody about that. There has been no recommendations from the City Council or staff yet. We're gathering input from people to get their opinions, and from there we're going to be meeting with a strategy and plan to make some changes in our community for the betterment of our community. With that, is there anything as far as the order of business or the agenda as is stated that needs to be added to it this time by any of the people on the council or staff? If not, we'll proceed with the meeting. Number two on the agenda is public comments. Do we have any public comments from anybody right now? If not, we'll move into item number 3. Richard and Irina? Yes. Yes, welcome. Irina is from Ukraine. She's been here for about 10 years. I had a chance to talk to her. Welcome to our country, and I just want to say welcome here, and for the report. We've been anxiously waiting for it. I know it took a little longer than usual with the weather that we had to endure with your trips from Minneapolis to here. But if you'd like to go ahead, Mr. Fursman, we'd appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And thought I would start off, first of all, really appreciated the time that all of you put into this. You took a significant amount of time out of your lives to meet with us, to provide us some input, and to provide names and contacts of individuals who you felt would be good people for us to talk to get a real flavor for what the community is like. You shared your passion for this job, and in my years, I've learned that this is the toughest job that you can get in the city as mayor and council. So I really appreciate the effort that you put forward. Seeing the newspaper, I realized that we're not revealing any secrets today, so we won't have that in front of us. What I would like to do is maybe lead off with the purpose of the meeting, and that is to review the report. We'll provide input, you'll provide input, get some feedback, and decide the next steps that we want to take in the process, and we'll outline what we're recommending on that. The purpose of the report is to do what? It's to accurately reflect the current state. It's to, when we put it together, it was designed to include a broad section of individuals, community members, staff, council. It's an instrument for discussion, and it's a process and transparency about what we're trying to do. One of the difficult things in a public process is when we're struggling, we get to put everything on the laundry line out there, which is something we don't have to do in private business. It's something we don't have to do in our nonprofit organizations oftentimes. But in the public process, everything that we're doing is right out here. But when talking to you, I heard from many of you when you put together something like this, do you want it neutered? In other words, do you want it watered down? Do you want it somehow put in ways that it'll look good no matter how we write it? And people said no, let us know how we're doing, let us know what the accurate reflection is of our organization. Now, we can debate tonight and this afternoon on accuracy, but we're here as a giant mirror, so to speak, and then taking a look at the future, and that's what this is supposed to be, is future-oriented. So as we look ahead, our study objectives, let's quickly. Vacant positions, that was a significant issue, future structure of the organization, and what was the work climate in which we're operating in. Those were the primary study objectives that we were faced with. And I see a lot of faces in here, too, that we spoke with. So welcome to folks, and some we haven't. Good to see everyone here. This was a model we used was really talking to citizens, businesses, other units of government, our partners, our hospitals, our boards, all designed to give us inputs into our org structure, evaluate our culture, our capacity for change. We filtered that through feedback and how do we operate technically was all part of the process of this study. Here's where we're at as far as the flow. If you recall this picture, we've done research. After research, we provided the council with some initial feedback as to what we were looking at. We also did research on the part of staff and provided staff with feedback to see if we got the story straight. We looked at some design inputs on this phase one, especially on external services. And now we're here for feedback and suggestions. Again, how do we go back? What do we need to tweak? What do we need to also look at in order to build this? As far as workflow, we've had a great share of information from staff, and council started to identify some new alignments, and the next step is, once we get alignment, is design process flow with the affected staff, because there are some changes, some positions going away, some positions being added. All the elected officials participated. We had at least 45 staff. I lost count a little bit there. I apologize for that. Because we met with a number of people one-on-one. We met with people in small groups and at times, and large groups. So I miscounted on a couple of, so that's my estimate minimum that we talked to. We had a business focus group. We talked to members of the Somali and Hispanic groups and individual community members as well, interviews, and conducted a survey as well within house. So that is the framework that we use to do data. We also did some looking at job descriptions, flow charts, contracts, budgets, a lot of other hard data that you have available here. As far as organization strengths, I think I started off with that. It is a committed council. You have a dedicated staff, exceptional cooperation throughout most of the departments. I have found that, and I used, you could use several others, but I used the wastewater treatment personnel and the public works personnel just as an example, because I found their efforts so seamless. They share personnel. They, when needed, they don't blink an eye. They just go across and help each other out. And I point that out specifically because you don't find that everywhere. You see turf battles starting to develop in areas where I've studied before. And so when it is of an exceptional nature, it's nice to be able to point out. It happens in other parts of the city as well. I use them as an example of how it's working. Some of the concerns that were raised in the report that you've gone through. What's our culture? What's the culture of the organization? Obviously, when you go through a significant change at top, where you have in elected officials and administration, the organization starts to take on a culture change. And it takes a long time for that to be understood, and right now it's in flux. There is a certain amount of where we're headed as an organization that's of mystery to most of the staff. And that causes confusion, causes miscommunication, and it makes us feel as if, and when I say we, I'm talking as if a staff person, it makes us as if we're floating without a rudder, kind of adrift right now. That bleeds into the leadership role. What's the responsibility of the leadership of the organization? Have we set a clear direction? What's the future of the organization? And then looking at our structure. And I broke it into two areas, really. The departments that are serving primarily the public through the services, and then the departments that primarily serve the members of our workforce. And for example, like IT services, even though they maintain the website, and that's a public service, they provide an awful lot of internal services to the other departments so they can do their jobs. And so that's the breakdown. And I'm going to, one of the survey instruments, or the survey instrument that we used was the Denison model. And Arena, who is our resident expert in the Denison model, is going to talk a little bit about that and why it was used very briefly.
So when we began our journey and when we began our work with you, unfortunately I didn't get a chance to meet you individually, so happy to see you now face to face. The cultural survey was not part of the plan originally. As we began talking to individuals inside and outside of the organization, it became clear very quickly that the way we do things around here is what needs to be discovered a little bit deeper. How are we operating? What are our relationships? How are we getting things done? And that's basically the definition of culture, and I think we mentioned that a little bit in the report. So we chose to use the survey to really understand the perspectives of the entire organization, of all the staff on various levels, because we couldn't talk to individuals, all of them. It's just two of us. And actually help them define what the culture is. So the model looks at it through 4 lenses and really was developed as a conversation point and not necessarily a tool that states what is wrong or what is not going well. It is describe what it is. There isn't bad or there isn't good culture. Culture exists, and our job is to describe it so we can do something with it. Or if we are to change our direction, what needs to change in our culture to help us get there, to help us get to our vision or to accomplish our strategies. So that's why we started looking at that more in more detail. So the model, just backdrop information, has been tested and used in various countries with multiple organizations. A lot of them are business, some are in public sector. And that will be available to you as a reference point in the full report, in the complete report. And that's what it looks like. So the questions that we asked the staff had to do with the mission, with consistency, with involvement of employees, and with adaptability. So looking at the mission, it's really looking at the leadership of the organization and whether or not employees at all levels understand what it is and have that been communicated to the lowest level in the organization. When we were looking at consistency, the questions were asked about how we're treating each other, what are the policies and procedures in place, are they consistent? In terms of values, are we living what we are aspiring to be? And how is it showing up in our practices in our organization? Involvement has to do with team and empowering people to be involved in the decision making. So the questions that were asked there, and you all took the survey, you may be able to recognize what kind of questions were there to assess that or to measure that. And finally, adaptability. I think many organizations, public organizations, make mistake not paying too much attention to it, but it's really about how are we strategizing to live our mission and to accommodate our customers. And so in our case, our customers, our community, the questions that we're really looking at, are we able to change how we make decisions and how we do things around here to accommodate the needs of new customers, new residents, or of the changing needs of existing customers. So the questionnaire itself can be also provided as an appendix for you later in the full report. But that's the model we worked with. Now, the research suggests that strong correlation between mission and consistency has the return on assets, on investment, and on sales. Obviously, sales wouldn't apply to this organization, but certainly the investments that we make in our community and the assets of our organization. The correlation between consistency and involvement has to do with improving quality of our work, efficiencies, and satisfaction of employees, which is also contributing to productivity and overall quality of our work. The relationship between the involvement and adaptability has to do with the response and the quality, I would say, not only speed, but the quality of our response to customer and employee needs. And finally, mission and adaptability has to do with certain things that government doesn't have to deal with, but on the other note, innovation that's crucial in our line of work, and certainly managing revenue effectively. That will be applicable here for us. So when we're talking economic development, we're talking attracting new businesses or new residents, that's where this part will be very much relevant to city government. So here we are today with the report in your hands, and the next part is really have you talk and us listen and take notes and take your feelings and input on what's in the report that seems to be missing, what's accurate and what's not. We had already had one meeting with staff and provided similar report back to some staff where we have asked similar questions on feedback. Is it accurate, and what's your input on going forward? Now, the things that we need to concentrate on, or we would hope to, is the future state. The current state is in the report, and to summarize it, there is no clear vision. And if you look at the survey data a little closer, the very first slide has an interesting information on it. The council as a group has individual vision, perhaps. That's the way it's being interpreted right now. But collectively, nobody knows what it is. And so what does it have to do with culture, and how does it impact how we do things around here? The mistrust is has direct link to it, because we don't know what we don't know sometimes. And how do we communicate direction, and whose direction are we communicating to whom, creates all sorts of relationship and communication issues, which leads to mistrust all across the board, which in turn impacts the morale. Fragmented leadership has to do with both the leadership at the top and emerging leadership within the organization. When there is no unity or no clear direction or no clear sense of what is going to happen to us as an organization, as a group, then this can be an outcome. And ultimately, inefficiencies and very low, not very low, but loss in productivity is what we can actually sense, in, I guess, in our pocket, if I would say. How it all trickles down to economy is undirected, if you will, organization with low morale has very hard time being efficient. So I'm going to stop here for a second and ask you first, and I'm not sure how to go about this kind of setting. The question I would ask you is, what's your initial response to what you've heard so far and to what's in front of you in the report? What is there that surprised you?
Thank you. Council, Mayor, comments? Mr. Dockin?
Thank you. Thank you both for coming. I'm sure you know we just recently adopted what's called the Home Rule Charter. That Home Rule Charter is the citizens' constitution. We have 10,000 voting citizens in the city of Wilmer. Our organizational chart clearly depicts that we work for those 10,000 citizens. Our mission is to provide efficient, cost-efficient city services to them. That's our mission. We do that through our various departments. I have yet to see job descriptions, duties and responsibilities of those individual work centers. And so, again, the Home Rule Charter says that our main job as a city council of 8 is to set policy. That's our job on behalf of 10,000 citizens. And so I think we start from there, that we look at, are we in fact, and one of the ways we do it, and the League of Minnesota Cities talked about this more than 2 years ago, is to start what they call community conversations with the 10,000 citizens. What is going well? What isn't going well? How can we improve the delivery, the cost-efficient delivery of services to 10,000 citizens? All of us know that we live in uncertain times, financially speaking. The federal government is $17 trillion in debt. Our state could be $2.2 billion in debt. And yet, when we talk about doing things in the new normal, a new way of adapting, adjusting, we are criticized because they do a cartoon that says that the city council says no to everything. No, this council person says no to those things we can't afford to do. We have to adapt and change. And that's difficult, but it has to be done. But I think we start out by following our Home Rule Charter, which is the Constitution for our citizens, and we go from there, and we hold community conversations. They can be done by wards, or they could be done on the social media, as I'm sure you are well aware of, as we could gather input from our citizens. I don't think we have heard, respectfully speaking, from enough of the 10,000 citizens that the 8 of us represent, and Ms. Mariani's also. Thank you.
Ms. Anderson, go ahead.
Thanks. And thanks for coming. I mean, you asked for an initial response. You know, when I read through this, a lot of words went through my head. You know, what do I think of this? You know, and some of it was wow, some of it was embarrassment, some of it was we have a lot of opportunities, and that's how I want to see us. I'm hopeful that the whole council will say, you know, we've got some issues and we've got some problems, but where there are issues and problems, there are opportunities. And I'm just hoping that we can come together, you know, in a united way and say, all right, what we've been doing, it hasn't worked very well. We certainly aren't making a positive impression with our employees, and we need to work on that. And there's a lot of other things we need to work on. So I'm hoping that we really take this to heart, and we really become 100% committed, all of us, to working through this and coming up with some paths for the future. You know, how are we going to be better? If we don't do that, then why did we go to this exercise?
Mr. DeBlake and then Mr. Christensen.
Thank you, and thank you for being here, Mr. Friesman. Yeah, initially, you know, the report doesn't shed a whole very good light on this city. We have problems, How did we get there? I don't think we can venture to speak to that there, whether or not it's really pertinent or not. But we do have some credibility problems. I think we have some lack of visioning problems with this council. I think there is a lot of mistrust. And like you say, morale amongst our employees is not very high. It's stressed. With that, I don't think we need to dwell on how we reached this point. I think we need to look at how do we move forward from here, and how do we build on what we have and what past councils have done to move forward. And bring the community back into sync with the council and employees, build the morale of our employees. So.
Thank you.
Just for everybody's information, thank you, the public, for being here. The restrooms are out in the hallway here. If you're not familiar with the facility, just wanted to point that out to you. Mr. Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had to read it twice. I couldn't believe what I was reading, some of the comments, and yet I had to take it kind of lightly, because when an employee can make a comment and not sign his name to it, just like editorial in the paper that are anonymous, I don't pay much attention to them. The vision that you talk about, the city is not run like a business, as some of the charts you had up there showed. I'm sure you speak to businesses too in the private sector. The vision of an employee, and I noticed many of them mentioned that word, we're here to deliver services. The city is going to deliver services: police, fire protection, clean streets, sewer, water, electricity. And we're doing a really good job of it. I think we get distracted by outside influences that think we should have this grand vision. Well, the grand vision is to deliver these services efficiently and with as low cost as we can to keep our taxes down for our people. The employees deliver services. We make sure they get delivered properly. We discuss and change policy so that the services are up to date and efficient. I personally don't believe that we have a problem on this council. We have the same people up here, with the exception of one council person, for the last, I don't know how many years. I mean, I've been on 18 years, and I'm third down from the top. We seem to get distracted by outside people, and this mistrust that you have up there on the screen was brought to us by someone else. Somebody working behind the scenes with our administrator that we know nothing about, and all of a sudden they come forward as this group of the Magnificent 20 or whatever they call themselves, and they create a lot of mistrust. I mean, I know a lot of these people, and I thought I knew them. That's where I'm coming from. But what do you mean when you say we should have this vision? What are you talking about as a city, not as a company or a business, but what is your interpretation of the vision we should have?
Well, vision really comes from the leadership. It's not so much that it would be a vision that we would recommend that the council has. Council really has an opportunity to look, let's say 5 years from now, what is the condition of our city going to be in? What is it going to look like? What level of service level are we going to be providing? How are we going to measure that? How are we going to know we're doing a good job? What is our, in many respects, what is the makeup of our community going to be? For example, what do we expect our downtown to look like? What is the as far as the level of infrastructure repair, replacement, all of these elements go into what we expect our community to look like in 5 years from now. For example, if you want to use a 5-year vision. Break that down to, for example, a community might say, you know what, we're really, our pool that was built in 1932 is antiquated, it's leaking, and it's not serving the public anymore. One of the visions that we have is to have a community-friendly, or excuse me, a family-friendly community that attracts young families to our community. That might be a vision that's a vision that another city that has come up with. And so they take a look at what does it take to attract families that we as a city can impact. One of them they decided was they wanted to have an aqua facility that was had zero level entry and a pool, a splash garden, those type of things. Those type of amenities were considered important for the community, and in addition to that, they wanted a walkable city. They wanted to have, they identified the things in their parks that were going to attract young families to them. They identified the partnerships that they wanted to commit with schools, and they clearly articulated all the ideas that they had to become a family-friendly city, and they actually put those into a work plan, the things that they were doing well, keep doing, things they weren't doing well, identify those and say, those are broken, and the things that they just had no business doing because it should come from another entity or other government or private entity. How do we get the word out in that way so people in the community have a clear vision or understanding of where we're trying to go when we say we want to be a family-friendly community and attract young families to our community? What is our role in that versus the private sector versus other governmental units? Now, that's just a real simple example of what a community has done to describe one part of the vision that they have for the future. And so that is an example right there.
Well, I thank you for your answer, but all the issues or items that you mentioned, we're dealing with. We're dealing with all of them. And as part of our vision, we had a 2020 vision. Went very well. We've just created a 2040 vision. It's kind of far out there. I mean, 2040s, some of us won't even be here. But we're addressing those issues or those items that you mentioned, you know, as a council. We are. And, you know, when I made some comments that I heard a chuckle out in the audience about, I don't think we have a problem on this council. You know, there's only 3 things that have changed up here with these, with this table, and that's the administrator, the mayor, and 1 new council person. We were doing the job prior to those people coming here, and we continue to do the job, but we get bastardized from outside forces that think we aren't going in their direction. And it's a real big distraction to this council. That needs to be addressed. You know, the distractions that we have and this group mentality outside of the council just doesn't work with me.
And Councilmember Christensen brings up a good point in that, you know, addressing about the idea of vision. It's not so much that Arena and I looked at this and went, you know what, we don't think you have a vision. That wasn't our job was to take a look at what are the impressions of staff and a certain amount of community members that we spoke to, albeit not a very big sample, obviously with 10,000 population, and reflect that back to you and give you a report on if you have a unified vision, if you know what you're doing, if you know where you're going, perhaps the problem is that it's not being communicated or we're not clear about it. So we're not up here to judge, to say, you know what, you guys haven't done this. All we're doing is holding up a mirror as to what was told to us. And throughout the organization feels it's not clear where we're going. We're not sure what the vision of the council is. And that's the message we got, and that's what we're reporting back. When we asked in one-on-one, when we asked in group, and when we asked in survey, it came back. We're not sure. We're not sure the direction. We're not sure where we're going. And so that's basically what we're doing, reflecting back what we heard. We're not here to judge whether or not you had whether or not your vision is on course or not.
One more comment to tag onto that, and that is the perception of dysfunction that's been created with the public has been created by what people read, and that's our local West Central Inquirer, if you may. They blow things up and make it look like things are really bad. They haven't said very many good things about this city council or this city in the last 18 months, I would say. So people's perception, if they're fed something day after day, week after week, editorials bastardizing us people up here, they're going to believe it pretty soon. And it's not true. I mean, the editorial the other day, somebody anonymously from this group talked to the West Central Tribune, and they wrote an article that's false. So somebody's guilty of it up here. I don't know who it is, but somebody's guilty. The Tribune won't tell us who. They're going to keep their people confident. But that's what's troubling us. I'll let someone else speak.
Anyone else?
I'll speak.
Ms. Nelson?
I'm the new kid on the block, and so I have a concern in reading this that there is a great opportunity here for this city, for this council to embrace, whether it's real or perceived. Things are not right. Communication isn't good. I don't see respect. I think it's a word that this city needs to embrace, both from council staff, community members, all of us. We may not like some of the things that are in here, but I think we have a responsibility to look at this and say, what are we going to do now? How do we take this document? The staff had an opportunity to pour their hearts out, to do it without being reprimanded, without being, if we don't listen to this, I think that would be a grave mistake. The lack of communication that I've experienced and witnessed since I've been on this council does speak to being dysfunctional. It does speak to a lack of vision, a lack of mission, a lack of planning. And I still think this is a great opportunity for us to come together, not to point fingers and not to find blame, but to work together to see how are we going to go into the next year, into the next 10 years. How do we make changes that benefit the services that we provide? It's reality. It's there. And whether we like it or not, I think we have to stop pointing fingers and point them back at ourselves and say, what are we going to do about this? And how do we move forward?
Thank you.
Maybe, as you were speaking, another way of looking at the vision might be, what services are we going to provide and to whom? So looking ahead and trying to envision what this community might look like in 10 years, and then how do you prepare yourself to accommodate that population with those needs in the best way and most effective and efficient way possible.
Thank you. Any other council people or the mayor? Mr. Mayor?
I'm fine, thank you.
Mr. Anderson.
Thank you. I have to comment. I mean, you can see that we don't have a united vision. Some of us may think that we have some issues, others don't. And that's kind of symptomatic of what our problem is we don't all view things the same way. And we never will view things. We all come from different backgrounds and different values and that sort of thing. But nevertheless, we hired an outside firm to come in and tell us, what are you hearing? Now, we may not like it, we may not agree with it, but that's what you're hearing. So, again, I say, we've got to come together as a group, and we need to try to move this forward. And I don't agree that we have goals out there, short-term, long-term goals. We have groups that are working on things, but the city itself, we as a city council, haven't sat down for a few years and talked about what are our goals? You know, what do we want to do about downtown? What do we want to do about the industrial park? What do we want to do about a lot of things? We haven't done that. Shame on us. That's our fault. But I think that is a place where we could certainly start.
Anyone else? I have a question, or a few comments. When this all started, it was requested by another group quite a while ago. And we wanted in this report to have the employees' feedback, because we're not cold-hearted. I know of no cold-hearted person here in the council. We do and appreciate staff. We might disagree with staff and what they're doing at times, but that's just a job. Everybody has that, and every job we have different fields. And my dad's theory, when I told him about a problem I had, he said, "Son, it's just a job. All you have to do is get along with them. Your life is after work." And I thought it was a good statement, and I've shared that with many people on the council. You don't have to fall in love with them. All you have to do is work with them. It's just your job. But we do appreciate that, and what a great opportunity if I was an employee to write down some things that I didn't like or particularly like, or to a font, a department head or whatever, and that's okay. I was perceiving that this was going to show a lot of that, and some of it was very direct. So we have to somehow decipher that into what's really reality. But the key thing is we wanted the input. And I think for them to do it confidentially, without knowing of who they are, so would there be some type of reprimand, was really important in getting this study put together. This is a part-time job of the council. We all have our business and our real careers. This is more of a public service type of job than anything else. We have the employees' feedback. Now, how do we do with it? How much is reality? How much is just perception? But obviously, the perception, or the public's perception of what's going on, is very critical. It's highly critical to move our community into a positive momentum forward. And I remember, and I was not on the council at the time when the 2020 plan was formed, but one of the top 5 priorities that I did read in that report was to portray a positive image about the city of Wilmer. I don't think that's been adhered to. We have disagreements here with one another on a political stance or on a decision that we are basing our opinion on, majority of us anyway, are basing on opinions that we get from our constituents. So we're doing what our constituents want us to do. We're stand our ground on a particular issue. It's not a personal thing. And I think sometimes they're perceived by the public as it is personal by this individual. It's not. It's by the groups of people, the coffee clutches and all those individuals that we meet with in our church and our family, that gives us direction and gives us feedback, which helps form our decisions on the stand we take. And we're not going to agree with them. That's never going to happen. I'm glad it doesn't happen, because with that conflict we have consensus making. And that's the way the whole political process works. This is not a job like you're at your job with your employer. You're dealing with a political body, and this is not going to be as smooth as having a manager who is your boss and has the right or authority to hire and fire you immediately. It's a little different. To compare it to business is not truly a good statement. But again, my whole thing here is the public's perception. With the 2020 plan and with moving Wilmer forward and all these groups, I value their input. I just wish that would be done openly. And I think that was what led to some of this perception or this problem. We never had a problem the first year the mayor was in office. Now, all of a sudden, we have a problem. And there's directions and changes that are being initiated and being changed. I don't mind listening to people's opinions. I value it. I think my opinion isn't always right and never will be always right. And your unbiased opinion that you're giving here is really appreciated, and it's good to read this through. I've read it through again like a lot of other people have, maybe more than once or twice or 3 times. And every time I read it, I gain more out of it. But one thing that really strikes me, and this might be the white elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about, and that's on page 4. It says, disconnect between the city administrator and elected officials. And this was your conclusion, is that the relationship between the mayor and the city administrator is doing great harm to the organization and reputation of the city. The rift is obvious to all the community members we spoke with and most of the staff. There is a trust gap with some of the council members and the administrator. A negatively worded email to the administrator from the Chamber of Commerce concerning certain elected officials exasperated the already existing trust problem between those elected officials and the current city administrator. This broken bond places all recommendations made by the administrator and staff in doubt as to the authenticity of both intent and accuracy of the items presented. This doubt has led to project slowdowns, inefficiency, and compounds morale problems. The last statement there, this doubt has led to project slowdowns, inefficiency, and compounds morale problems. How is that? How did you come up with that last line there? What was your determination, or what made you word that way?
Well, you can imagine if you're in sync, and having been in this role and have had been at odds with elected officials myself at times, where the trust is broken. The threshold for being able to make a decision keeps advancing. Now imagine if I came up to you and I said, Councilmember Ahman, can you provide me a recommendation on A, and I don't trust you? Or I want these in order of what you think is most critical for our organization. If I don't have a trust either in your ability, or let's say our relationship is stressed, if we're reversing it, if you're asking that of me, I'm going to have to spend a significant more amount of time to go into each of these details, provide what would have been a three-page report may now be a 30-page report. We're going to have to do additional work. It may slow down if questions come up at the Diaz as to if we want to redirect. If I don't have a good working relationship with you and a trusting relationship with you, oftentimes I thought one of the most important skills an administrator can bring is to be able to read the individuals they work for and to have that trust. So, you know, there were times when I was working, and I'm sure you're all administrators, yours included, when you have a sense of, I want to be able to sit down and say, you know, I can't tell you specifically right now, or I couldn't put it eloquently in a report, but I just got a feeling that right now this is the wrong time for this. I don't have that opportunity if I can't sit down and now don't misinterpret this as not having to do the work to prove what your point is or do research. But there are times when, if what I'm going to put on paper is going to be suspect, if the motives are going to be questioned, or if it seems like I'm working for this council member but not that council member, it can create slowdowns. Not only that, but what innovative idea is going to percolate the top? You know, innovative ideas behind the administrator. When I was an administrator and I didn't have a good relationship with my council, none of the ideas that were behind me were percolating up to the council. What comes out of my mouth, it gets contaminated right away. I'm talking to you, I don't know, what's that Fersman talking about? Okay, so I think that relationship is critical to any organization. Now, Do we have to be best friends? Of course not. Do we have to see eye to eye on all policy decisions? No, it's not my point to do that. My job as an administrator, any person's job, Charlene's, is to say, what did the majority say? That's the direction I'm going to go. And it's also imperative that when information is provided to you, that you have confidence that, hey, unless there's some shenanigan going on, this information is the best that they could provide, and it's pretty detailed and it's good. And I'm going to trust the recommendations that were made by staff, and I'm going to trust these decisions. If they're not, imagine the work I'm going to have to do to convince you. And if I'm doing that on a consistent basis, and the people behind me are doing that on a consistent basis, the hour and a half it normally would take to put this together is now taking 4. That eats up time. That eats up resources. That is where talking to people, seeing the amount of weight that has to go into each of our comments, our decisions, our packet material, or whatever it be. It's weighty. And if I have a good relationship, if I'm trusted by every one of you and I say something.
Thank you.
It's a different feel. But very good question. Thank you.
Well, again, I don't. It's hard for you, but it says here, this doubt has led to project slowdowns. You know, if there has been some slowdown on some project, I'd like to be aware of it. And inefficiencies, I don't know what more we can. There's always room for improvement in efficiencies. Even in my business, there's always a better idea out there, and we value the opinions and the confidence and the trust of staff people to give us those ideas, rather than them being lobbied to us or being presented to us with very little time or very little input and being forced to make a recommendation on it or take action on it. Consolidation of opinions is, I think, lacking on this council. I will agree with that. Also, just for information, I brought this up to Labor Relations Committee meeting, a briefing. A lot of times we are not briefed. Again, we're part-time people. We're not briefed and told of what issues are coming up, what has changed. Perfect example was the loss of the 80 employees at Molnar's Inc. Lost 80 jobs. I'm not faulting anybody for this. But a plan of action and setting a policy for that is highly, highly, highly important to this council. That should be the type of policy we're sitting at. And we have limited time to do that. But we need confidence from the staff and from the council to move in the right direction and have a consensus. If we were to have staff updates, briefings on what's going on, how are we coming in this project, our deadline was 6 months ago, we're still past. What's the problem? What's the obstacle? How can we address it? Who are we going to talk to? Who's going to take the action? All those types of steps have to deal with the city administrators and the mayors consolidations on opinions to move this in the right direction. If we don't have communication and we have breakdown in that skills with any of us on the council, because you attack one person or it affects one other council person, it eventually all makes it look bad for the city council in general. And who'd want to run for city council when they see all these things, or when they hear all these things, all this partial information in the newspaper? I know we have direction and we have foresight and we have vision. We have a lot of knowledge in this council. We have a lot of smart people on this council, dedicated people on this council, and I think we have the same with staff. It's the issue of how it's being delivered and who's bringing us the message. I believe that's one of the underlying problems, and I'd love to work with the council and the mayor and the city staff to take care of those issues. Are there any other comments? I've talked long enough from anyone in the council? Do you want to bring this up or not, Steve? Mr. DeBleek.
Yeah, I don't think anything that's, like I said before, is anything surprising, and I'm glad you brought up item, that page 4, the item on page 4 about the disconnect between the administrator. I don't think that holds true with all the members of the council. I think we have a very good administrator. She's been doing a fine job. She's doing an excellent job. She's working in the community. I think there's been some problems with some councilmen, members, as to how they perceive it. I think there's been some attacks back and forth between certain community groups with certain members of this council that have been ongoing, and it's just been very disruptive. And it says not building this council in a very positive light within the community. So I think those are things we need to work on. And you know, Mr. Fersner here has identified, I think, when you say hit the nail right in the head, we can't dwell on the past. I think we need to look at this. We need to move forward. We need to move forward in a positive fashion. And as how do you build ourselves and build the trust and rebuild the relationships that we need to be able to move forward positively with the city and with our relationships with the community and our employees. So.
Thank you. Mr. Chair.
Yes.
There's one of the things that we looked at real carefully was the business. Does a business model fit? And I've heard a couple of times too, where and when we're looking at the Denison model, knowing that it's primarily used to measure business and health of businesses, but it's also an excellent cultural model. One of the things that we studied before using that was what are the relationships between solid business practice and solid government practice here. Certainly business boards get very ugly. I've been in some of them that make this group look like the singing sisters of Notre Dame, but very, very dysfunctional board level. The interesting thing is everybody in there is sworn to secrecy, and the doors are closed, and the business is conducted in a manner in which people are able to throw things at each other, call each other names, and then leave the boardroom, and nobody knows about it. But one of the lessons that you can kind of take away from the business model and how to apply it here is there's no successful business that we've been able to identify that would have a disconnect with the employees. The most successful businesses, the employees understand the mission, they understand the vision, they understand their role in the organization. And that's where we thought this is an opportunity for us to really take a look at where the rub is and why the model might be important and applied. The most successful businesses out there that we read about in Inc. magazine or we see thriving in our local economies, whether they be family held or otherwise, really when they have valuable employees, you hear them talk about their employees in such flattering ways and about the product they're putting out in flattering ways. You never hear an organization really discuss their employees in a derogative way, in a public way. And that I think is a takeaway from the business model. What image? Businesses work very hard on the image that they're trying to project. Businesses work very hard on employee engagement, the most successful ones, and investment in their employees. The razor's edge other side of it is that businesses are also very fluid. When the employee is no longer productive, they let them go. When the employee is no longer needed, they let them go. And so that's the other edge of it that when we take this, when you take a model like this, you go, how do we as an organization, how do we as a community apply this in a way that teaches us things? And so that's why we grasped onto that model. Now, I've written down a number of things here. I wrote in the report that there would be I've come up with recommendations, but actually when we looked at this, we thought, well, we'd rather hear your recommendations. I've got them in the back pocket here, and so far, this is what I've been jotting down notes from you. Sure, we're not in a very good light. There's an opportunity here. The pressures that the council are under are sometimes not perceived in the light they ought to be by the public. Oftentimes, it's only our discourse that seems to raise to the level of awareness. We may have different values, but we're all good people. We all have the best interests of the community in mind. And so with that, what are some of the recommendations that I've gleaned from your individual comments? We need to repair the relationship between administration and some members of the council. We need to understand the roles between the administrator. What are the administrator roles, and what are those outlined by our charter and the roles of the mayor? We need to gather input from the citizens more frequently. We need to come together as a group. We need to find a way to do that. Bring the community back in sync. We need to build the morale in the employees, let them know that they're appreciated. We need to eliminate being a distraction. We have to understand how we will go into the next year and the next 10 years. Where are we going? We need to develop goals that are understood by the organization. Now, those are the ones that I've heard from you. Any other recommendations that you would want in this report?
Mayor and council, comments? Mr. Versman, I have one comment. When you're looking at the organizational structure for external services that you put in your report on page 9, it shows a flow chart as hiring a new employee for Director of External Services who would be over all of the other departments in our city, and that person would report to the city administrator. I'm not sure how to perceive that.
And I was going to go into sort of the structural thing. There's actually two reports, almost together in this. And the first one really talked about our organizational health on the whole. And the second part looked at a very specific set of services that the city is providing right now, and a couple of options in which we could. Right now, one of the things that we're really struggling with, as we know, is what are we going to do with the engineering position, and so that's in there. I guess the basis of my question was, from the first part, were there steps the council wanted to take as the organization as a whole, or that you wanted to take as leaders on that? And I read that list to you. And then the second part is really taking a look at a very specific spot and looking at a couple of options, and where are the benefits and where are the, where can we capture some efficiencies and some actually increase in service to our public, and have a discussion on that. So if we'd like to move into that right now, we could, and not.
Well, I'm not sure if the council is ready to do that or not. I'm somewhat prepared, but I don't want to take all the time. I want to hear the opinions from the rest of the council and the mayor on that particular issue. Yes, Audrey.
Will there be a time to come back and review, or add on to the things that you've written down there?
Absolutely. I mean, this is your process.
So for tonight, we can be okay with what we've done or listened to so far?
Actually, I think you'll find that what I wrote down, you've done a better job anyway. So for the most part, we know what we need to do, and you've outlined it. As far as second part, let me briefly go over this. And taking a look at right now, positions that are unfilled that appear up there are city engineer, surveyor, environmental manager, GIS, facilities maintenance coordinator, and director of external services. The meeting with all of these individuals, there's a great deal of cooperation that goes across these departments right now. Their activities are interrelated. They depend on one another for information, for action. The first blush was if we rehire the engineer, should we hire a director of public works type of engineer who's going to have the public works superintendent report to them, the wastewater treatment superintendent report to them, all facilities maintenance report to them, and then leave planning and development off. And so you would have basically two reports to the administrator, which looks much like the model that you had before, and it's Plan B. Taking a look at this, one of the things that we discovered talking with the engineering group and listening to them more than speaking, and looking at the contracts, the city engineer, you could really use somebody who can design. Why are we farming all that out? The need for the surveyor as you're doing projects with public works, with planning, and all your engineering work is absolutely necessary. Now you can farm that out, and you are right now. The whole idea behind having the engineer focus more on engineering, plan drawing, be a professional designer, as opposed to somebody running public works as well, was for that reason. Get somebody in there who can create and do design work and concentrate on that. They would have enough, 3 technicians really. Your environmental manager is a technician. That's a position you've held in the past. You currently have 2 technicians in office right now. Surveyor is gone, and I also indicated that there's an opportunity for GIS. The county has a very good GIS system. We don't have anybody here that interlays with it. You are years and years and years behind getting data into the GIS system. The GIS system could be used by the planning department, public works, wastewater. It actually could be used just by about every department in the city if you utilized a professionally done GIS system. It would reduce the lookup time that people are spending researching items. The most simple tasks take now at least 10 to 20 times longer than they need to, based on the amount of files that people have to go through that could be all brought together in a GIS system. So that's why I have it in there. And that's why I have engineering separate. There's enough engineering work in this community based on the amount of billables that you've been doing that an engineer would be well worth the investment, and would encourage you to do that. Now, if you go the other way, it'll work too. I just, in my mind, it doesn't work as effectively. The engineer, public works superintendent, the senior planner, and wastewater treatment superintendent in this model would all be peers, rather than a reporting structure up through the city engineer. So what in some ways looks like one more level of hierarchy is actually flattening out these services significantly to create opportunities for more cross-training and really stop the bottleneck of everything having to go through the engineer. Let them plan and design, let them manage the overall management of all these individuals. I mean, we do need job descriptions. We need to have a thorough understanding of what our expectations are of us, and that we need to be reviewed yearly, maybe bi-yearly. And you do all those reviews and all those expectations, and you throw that on to the community developer or the city engineer, and those things won't get done. You won't have your reviews. You won't have those other tasks being done as effectively. Facilities maintenance coordinator, you have a significant number of buildings under your control, like it or not, and they need attention. They need attention desperately. It is a huge investment that you've made. If that starts to go down, the downside of that is don't be penny wise and dollar foolish. Make sure that you do excellent facilities maintenance. That's another business model that you would look into. Now, facilities maintenance coordinator, I recommend it comes from the ranks of public works, so they would be reduced by one. A lot of that responsibility falls on them right now. We're actually designating an individual. That individual would overlook all the buildings. It would look over all the contract employees. And I have building official under there as well. Not necessary. I'm not, jumping up and down about that. The building official can provide an awful lot of advice and an awful lot of guidance when it comes to buildings, when the roof is ready, when the how to replace the infrastructure within the facilities, and they will be able to provide exceptional guidance in that area with the staff that you have. That's why I was seeing that they're going to have an important role in the facility maintenance. They already do, and it can't be stressed enough that their role will save money for the city in the long run. Wastewater treatment superintendent has historically moved up through the city engineer. Having them on equal basis with the engineer will be able to move up those issues more quickly. Look at the debt that you have on your wastewater treatment facility, and this is an issue that needs oversight and management. And they have a great team there, and right now they're still adjusting to their plant. Obviously, there's still bugs in it. And I see it as a more natural link, right, to report directly to a director of external services, if you would. They're not competing then with public works and facilities under the city engineer to get these issues up there, and there are plenty of them that need focus. Planning, development, and senior planner. Actually, it's just planning and development. I would eliminate one of the planning positions. If you have somebody in external services to oversee the coordination of these activities, you can probably reduce planning by a person. So in essence, you've got planning reduction of one, public works reduction of one, wastewater treatment would maintain their reduction of one that's already on there. Facilities maintenance coordinator would be an added position, and director of external services would be an addition. So if you look at that group of four under the director, you haven't changed the number of personnel. I would recommend under public works superintendent that you go to a two-foreman role. One of them is going to be concentrating more on parks and trails as these systems develop And it would be good to have a specialty in these areas. And the other foreman working on streets and underground and other maintenance issues. Since you split the department, or years and years and years ago, the department went from 2 into 1, and it would just be good to have foremen who understand the various roles there. So we are down, we would be down public works staff in that by 1. I also said if you're going to look at any kind of outsourcing, which is an important part of a business model, if there are members of the private sector that can do a job effectively to your satisfaction, you need to take a look at that. But I also put in very pointed recommendation that every time you do a study of that point, you have to be very specific as to what you're looking for and what the parameters of the study are. If you were to come up to me and say, if I was going to go up to somebody and ask them to describe the savings or ask them to do the arithmetic on a project, and I didn't specify all the details in it, they could go anywhere with the study, and they will. And it probably won't match your expectations. So any kind of study that would involve sending the service out, you have to identify first the service parameters where you're at now, what your expectations are, and the level, in other words, the level of service that you're going to demand, and whether or not you're going to be able to step back from that. I use street sweeping as an example because it was a very good example. It was clear. I mean, you've gone through that sort of discussion somewhat already, and it's been out there on a razor's edge, so we'll throw it out there. It would work if you eliminated a position. I don't think it works if you don't. If you don't eliminate the position, where's your savings going to be? So in order to do something like that, I think you have to have very specific, well, how are you going to eliminate a position like that and eliminate a service like that and have the community still satisfied and still be able to operate on critical, on the critical issues that go beyond that person's work on a street sweeper? Those are the types of things that have to be outlined. Well, one of the ways this works, if you do a facilities maintenance coordinator, that person and the person under them need to be cross-trained or continue up their training in snow plowing. If there are opportunities, and you see it here in waste treatment, there may be times when, in the winter, when cross-trained wastewater treatment personnel, like a floater or somebody like that, might be able to help with some of the plowing duties. Why not? Now, that's a discussion that they have to have across the board and kind of see, put the chess pieces on the board and do it. But in order to have a reduction in numbers there, I'm recommending, you know, that you take a look at, understand the parameters of all the aspects of how the pieces might fit together. I think that fits under, if you had one person coordinating that discussion is going to be a little easier than different departments protecting themselves. So in essence, what you have here is a model that shores up engineering, brings planning, public works, wastewater treatment, facilities maintenance, engineering, and to a certain extent some of your community ed all on the same level of authority. So they come together and they work as a cohesive team under an external services director. And so that is one model and that you can take a look at.
Thank you. Mr. Docken, you had a question?
Yeah, I do. Would you consider this to be a policy decision to do this? You know, I mentioned earlier that the new home rule charter says that the council as a whole Their main responsibility is policy. Is this a policy decision?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. This is the first I've seen of this. And I think the rest of the council, it's the first that we've seen of it.
I would assume it would be.
Right.
It was my understanding, Mr. Chair and Mr. Dockin, that, this was sort of the purpose behind this was to kind of evaluate how these different models might work and then present that to you for comment.
We have 4 committees, okay? We have finance, we have public works and safety, we have labor, and we have community development. That's a chance to involve the council, and we have 20,000 people in our city. 10,000 are eligible to vote, about 2,500 in each ward of the 4 wards. This, quite frankly, is a little distressing that it would not have come through a council committee first so that the council would have had a little bit of input on this. Maybe it's just me. And also the documentation. I need to say that the state auditor has a position. We are accused of being dysfunctional because we all seem to be on a different page. The way that we get on the same page and our citizens get on the same page is to document what we're doing, why we're doing it, where the dollars are coming from, and how in the world do we sustain it in an uncertain time, okay? The state auditor, and you can read it yourself, talks about a statement of position on meeting minutes. All of this should be documented. The council should all have that same level of documentation. More importantly, our citizens should have that also, so that those 10,000 citizens can help us, suggest to us how we should be providing services for our citizens. This really, again, this is the first I've seen it when I got your document. Should have gone through a committee meeting as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Anderson.
I guess I would say this is a committee. This is the Labor Committee. We have everyone here. This is what we've asked for. It's coming to us to look at. We're not being asked to make any policy decisions or any thinking tonight, I don't believe. This is information that's coming to the Labor Committee.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, and then Mr. Christensen, then Mr. DeBlake.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Maybe it would be helpful if I looked at both options together, and then that way, when we take comment, it'll be more measured, and we can kind of compare and contrast. That way, it's some of the questions that I'm just guessing might come up might be answered better in option B, or at least we can kind of see the differences between the two.
Okay.
That makes sense. So, could you advance? Thank you. Option B really takes kind of the structure the way it exists today, or existed at one time. It doesn't really exist this way right now simply because we don't have the city engineer / public works director. And under this model, you would maintain your 2 planning and development personnel. The city engineer would have responsibility over wastewater treatment, technicians, environmental manager. Again, the GIS, if we wanted to add that, the surveyor. And under the surveyor is, could you come up a little bit? We'll, or shrink it, there we go. Our public works superintendent, and then facilities maintenance being part of public works superintendent. Here you have an alignment that looks very, very similar to what you've had in the past. The thing that is different is that you have a GIS specialist in there as well. So public works alignment would look similar to the other side, where I would recommend that you have 2 lead people, one in parks and one in streets emphasis. So essentially, when you compare and contrast, you see that in one instance, you're adding a what I would call super department head who would take on the role of the engineers, director responsibilities. And the disadvantages to this, if you don't get an assistant engineer to do design work, you're going to be putting an awful lot of responsibility on the engineer to be the coordinator and supervisor of all the other employees in the organization. That's the weakness here. Maybe the strength here is there's only a couple of reports, and the administrator can handle a couple of reports.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor.
I just have a couple of comments to make. Have you done anything in the report? I have not had time to go through the whole report, I have to tell you. But anything on a positive note of all the accomplishments that this so-called dysfunctional council has done? Have you made any positive remarks as to what this council has done? I have a list of 20, which would be too long to read right now, but and those are just accomplishments that this council has made.
As far as looking at the organizational strengths, three of the areas that identified are the work of the council, or the commitment of the council. Identified that at the front of the report. As far as another organization strength is the dedication of staff. I got a list of of an agent. I don't know if you've seen this or not. You probably have. How long employees have worked here? An aging. Very dedicated group of people. And areas of exceptional cooperation throughout the city with each other's departments, and being able to work through things. And yes, although there's been clouds, we still get an incredible amount done. I think some of that got lost. You know, when you're looking at pain, we sometimes don't look at all of the good things that are going on.
There are some good things that are happening.
Of course there are. And you know, I put it on the front of the report that we have strengths here within this organization. That's why I'm hopeful. And that's part of what, when I hear comments like, all right, here's where we're great, here's where we stub our toes, and when people are really focused on, all right, now what can we do better in the future, I think that is really the focus of what we want to do right now, is really take a look at how do we go from a good organization that does good things to great. How are we going to, you know, get that vision? Where are we going? How are staff going to be engaged? How are they going to know where the future of this organization and how they fit into it? If they don't know how they fit into it, if you're working for an organization, you don't know whether or not your job is meaningful, whether or not your job is going to be current, whether or not they're going to hold on to you, it has a negative impact.
If I may, I just didn't want people to leave here thinking that this council didn't do anything. Like I've heard, this is a do-nothing council. It is not a do-nothing council. Let me stress that. It is not a do-nothing council.
So, appreciate those comments, and I hope it's reflected in that. I could have done a whole report on all the positive things as well, and they are there. I reflected, when you ask certain members of the public and you sit down, or staff, or even the council, it was interesting in council, we also go to our pain first. We seem to do that. We seem to go, well, you know, yeah, we're doing some good things, but you know what? I ask everybody, how are we working together? And it's kind of like, oh boy, I wish we worked better. Everybody did. Everybody on this council, and I asked them, how you work do you work as a team? No, you know, everybody's good, but somehow. So there are those great things, Mayor, so.
And I read one place in here, if I may, that somebody made the comment that they should fire the entire council and start over because there are better people to serve. I'd like to know where they are, because I don't see them.
That's an interesting comment, you know, and some of my one-on-ones, when people were saying the things they were doing, I said, well, why don't you run? And the comment back was, oh, I couldn't do that. And I said, well, imagine how painful it must be to you know, go through this and have to listen. And I put myself, and I'm thinking, boy, coming in with the first half of this report, it's like asking you to embrace me after I sandpaper your face. I mean, it's just not. And talking to the, you know, the public, there are many people who said, you know, I wouldn't be able to, you know, handle the animosity, or, you know, or it would hurt my business and things like that. And there's business owners up here. You know, you people put it out there, and I really appreciate that. And that's, I hope it was reflected in that. Maybe I didn't write enough about it, but.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I do have one other question, if I may.
Go ahead.
How many times have you met with the administrator compared to the mayor?
Oh, many more times.
Okay.
The administrator I used to help coordinate all the interviews, went through the administrator's office to get things like job descriptions and.
I had one meeting with you, am I right?
Yeah, and as far as the interview went, I had one interview with the administrator on the organization study, and then the rest were feedback sessions like I'm having here. We had one feedback session with the group. I had a feedback session with the administrator, and also and she joined us on feedback session that I had with what I call the external services grouping. When I went in and talked to them about what my findings were and what they felt were appropriate and where they thought I was a little overzealous. So.
Mr. Christensen and Mr. DeBlay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Getting back to these A and B options, I'm looking at A, and you've got that Director of External Services directly below the City Administrator, and it appears that it would be an Assistant City Administrator. I mean, I don't know how you came up with this term of Director of External Services, but years ago, before we had an administrator, the council dealt with the department heads, and they were not a group, a recognized bargaining group. And the council at that time decided to hire a city administrator to deal with the department heads and administer, you know, what the city has to do. I don't like the idea of an assistant city administrator. I'd rather have that position, have the department heads report to that position. I also see I don't see the city clerk or finance on here anywhere. They are two departments also. Under planning and zoning, the building officials, you know, we discussed, at least at my interview with you, that we should merge them with the county. We deal with 3 different building officials in this county right now, and it doesn't make any sense to have 3 blocks away. We got 2 jurisdictions. It just doesn't make any sense. They should be merged. As far as city engineer, I would be in favor of an engineer and an assistant city engineer, but then putting some other departments below that, like you had on option B. Years ago, the city engineer was in charge of engineering, plans, construction, public works, trees, airport. Planning and zoning was below the engineer. Building and plumbing inspections were below the engineer. The waste treatment plant was below the engineer. Airport maintenance was public buildings and building maintenance. The engineer has to deal with all of those at some point in time. Planning and development, they go to the engineer. Planning and zoning, they go to the engineer. Wastewater treatment, I think that probably fits under there also, especially if you have a good engineer, and especially the facilities maintenance coordinator, if we're going to create that position. What a better place to be than below the engineer.
And that'll work, as I said. It depends on how much demand you want to put on the engineer.
Well, it's that department, or, like I said, years ago, back in the 80s, that's how that was. And it got along fine, and they reported to the city council, not to an administrator. I think the administrator needs to have the department heads report to that position. Otherwise, I don't know where that position is going. I mean, you eliminate it and just have the Director of External Services? Those are my comments on that. And I can see there's some room for change. There's no doubt about it, and from what we're doing today. But engineering is important. We should have one right now. I mean, I spoke to the other engineering firms that we shop out to, and they all agree we need one to do the specs that they have to deal with when they come out. And speaking of that, you know, we got a note stating that, I forget the amount that we spent this year or last year on shopping out consulting to the engineering firms because we don't have an engineer. We've always done that. Even when we had a full-time engineer, we still shopped out engineering. I mean, it's just, so that number was kind of, that was thrown at us. I forget, $200,000-$300,000, but it was under false pretenses. I mean, that, we've always shopped out in engineering projects. So we need an engineer, and we need one bad. We should have one right now, as a matter of fact. I know the administrator wanted to wait until we had your report, but that's my feedback.
Thanks.
Mr. Bleak and then Audrey.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The organizational structure says a lot about who we are and how we're going to deliver services. You know, we're going to deliver the services. We all want them delivered the most economical and efficient way possible, whether that be contracting services, which is part of the policy this council has to set, whether we contract services more or less, or if we do it with employees, hired employees. Now, the structure of how the city structures that plan and for delivering of those services, I'm sure this plan, Richard, that you have here, is this other models, other cities, how are they doing that? How is this structure look in other cities? You know, we're not the first ones to have an organizational structure. Did you look at how other cities do it? Can we do it better? Are they doing it better than we are?
Well, I think one of the handicaps that we did have was, you know, kind of looking at, a lot of times it's very important to see where you're going as an organization. What are our values? What are the level of services that we're hoping to provide? What is the goals that we have set up for the next 5 years? How are we going to get there? You know, whether it be through community input, through the entire council. So when we were designing this, we were designing it as a system without necessarily a direction, other than provide services at the lowest, most effective services at the best price. Really is where we were going. Where the city is planning on being, you know, from a council perspective, was different depending on which council members you're talking to. So in light of not having sort of that endpoint in mind, it was designing by how are the groups currently working together and how would we get as much efficiency and effectiveness out of the group as possible, where we're being able to reduce some people in certain areas and beef up in others. And so directly to your question, both these models are done in other cities, and there's hybrids of both of these models done in other cities. For example, Blaine. Blaine has they call it a super department head position in which you have 2 super department heads that report to the city administrator there. One's external and or service. They don't call them the same here, but they're equivalent. City of Brooklyn Park is looking at moving its various departments like this under internal services and external services. And because we know our models don't work quite as effectively as they used to, we can't have directors building fiefdoms. And we really need a flat, especially at the bottom where we're counting on different groups working together effectively across the board. And it's hoped that Model A kind of does that. It creates a table of equals, if you will, around the table in which we have to depend on each other in order to get the job done. And so that's where the model is really being derived from. And it's a co-created model with the group. I brought in Public Works, I brought in wastewater treatment, I brought in what's left of engineering, and planning, and whether it be an airport personnel. And we played with different models. And one of the fundamentals in the report that you saw, or when we were starting this whole process, I said, if you don't co-design it, if you don't co-create it, including you, and this is your feedback on this, how are people going to embrace it and how successful is it going to be? So we tested various models, and Plan A was the one in which there was the most enthusiastic response behind that. And a big part of the recommendations that I bring forward are using the knowledge of the people in the organization that you have to bring that forward and say, this has been discussed, whittled down, we've done our feedback, we've talked about the issues, how do these different models work? And it kind of came down to, well, there's really 2. There's the one we've lived under, and then there's this other one that may be a little bit more effective in being able to provide more work. And that is the feedback that we got from our group.
This is not the total organizational structure. We're only seeing a piece of the structure here as well. Am I correct with that? I know we don't.
Yeah, well, one of the questions that came up.
We're not seeing any police, fire, finance, or city clerk on this structure. There's a blue line that moves off the sheet. I'm sure that's.
Yeah, well,
there's something that
couldn't all fit on a PowerPoint, so
all fit on the overhead. So
no, one of the requests was that if we got to this point and to concentrate on this first, because this is such a critical area, and it was mentioned by several of you on council, and it was even brought up at the council meeting when we did the debrief. Is it possible? I think it was Councilmember Johnson, but I'm not sure. Asked if there's any way we can. If you get this mapped out, can we see this first? And I said, okay, we would. Part 2 of the report, which is on page 13, I indicated there would be any realignment that we would put in the report. We'd also talk more about underutilized county services, the city internal services review and alignment, what that's going to look like in the end, succession planning and knowledge transfer strategy. What are we doing about assessing, human resource management, and all the research references that have gone into the study would be part of that. This was really a way of testing, hey, this is what we have so far. This is the model of a couple of different ways to look at engineering. And obviously, when you're about to hire, these are critical decisions. Because if you go with Model A, you're really looking for somebody who's going to be an excellent numbers person, engineer, really good in drafting and designing, and working with his or her group on that. If you are looking for a public works superintendent more, you're going to have a lot more supervisory, more depth of experience in that role. And so whichever way you go, the job description is going to be significantly different. The other factor that came up in our discussions is the people, the really good public work directors that you're going to have who are going to be able to do this job are harder to find than engineers. It's just a numbers game. It's just a little bit tougher to hire them. There aren't as many, and they're competitive, and you're going to pay for them. There isn't one over the other that's more expensive or less expensive. If you go with a Plan A director of external services, that person's going to be more expensive as well. So either way, I think you're going to see about a wash as far as cost.
Audrey?
Just a clarification on your option A, when you talked about the city engineer. Ron made a comment about all the that we have to contract out for that. If that person, I believe your intention there was if that person is not doing all the management, that person would be able to probably do more of the engineering in-house than having to do as much as we're farming out now, I think was the way he referred to that.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're still going to have certain things farmed out. You're going to have an engineering bill, you know, specialty work that they're not going to be confident in or competent in. You know, that's going to have to be farmed out. Some of the larger projects are going to have to be, you know, so you're going to have certain costs that are farmed out. But right now, you're doing a significant more than a standard engineering department would farm out.
Okay. Then my second comment or kind of question too was he referred to 1980 and talked about the city engineer and some of those types of things. My perception would be that the city engineer was probably perceived as an assistant administrator with the structure that's listed below under, I mean, not so much in a term, but in a function with as many people reporting to him as you look up the hierarchy. They would be the second in command kind of position. And I'm assuming that's what was going on back in the 1980s at that time too. Would that be correct?
Well, I didn't evaluate the
but it's somewhat
flow chart at that time, but it does sound like your city engineer at that time had a lot of responsibility. Yeah.
Somewhat what you're laying out in B is that you still have a second. I mean, you have someone that's managing a great deal of staff under B, right?
Really, it's absolutely. You're hitting it right on. You're the only thing that the engineer wouldn't be doing on Plan B is planning, and that would.
So this kind of evens. Your Plan A is hopeful to even out some of that work.
You're planning. You no longer have a community development director. It's now it would be a senior planner. You would your public works superintendent would be their peer along with the wastewater treatment superintendent, the maintenance coordinator, facilities maintenance coordinator, the engineer.
Okay. Yeah.
It would be a table of equals, if you will.
Question, Mr. Christensen, then Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Probably going to get beat up for this, but you and I had talked about privatization too in our interview, and we had a lot of employees in public works that came along at the same time, and they're probably eligible for retirement in the next 2 to 5 years, some already right now. It would be a good time for us to look at privatizing some of these functions, the mowing, the street sweeper, et cetera. You know, if you go on the internet and Google Sandy Springs, Georgia, which is in Maddox County, population 100,000, about 7-8 years ago, they decided to shop everything out except police and fire. It's all contracted out. They cut their taxes in half. They're doing twice as many roads per year, redoing the infrastructure. And there's other cities in the country that are doing it. And, everybody in Georgia is looking at that model because it's saving a lot of taxpayer dollars. You know, employees are biggest expense in our operational budget. It is everywhere. And across the country, all these retirement plans going defunct. Employees are expensive. They're also our best asset. I realize that. Same thing in business. However, again, we are here to deliver services. The city's not an employment agency, and we should never look at it that way. We're supposed to deliver services to the taxpayers. Sewer, water, fire, or protection, police protection, lights, the like. Wouldn't it be a good time to be looking at some of that, Richard? I didn't see it anywhere in your report, except for the mention of a street sweeper thing.
Well, I didn't mention specifically retirements. I did mention that if you're going to look at contracting out, that the only circumstance I could recommend doing it is through when you start having attrition. And I did mention that in the report, that attrition is a time to do that. So is it a good time? Absolutely. I mean, we always want to be competitive. And I have found most cities are competitive when it comes to the services that they provide for the dollars that they're providing the community. And if you wanted to do, and that's what I'm saying, if you're going to do a study like that, you have to have very detailed, specific parameters for what you are looking at. So if we are going to replace street sweeping, if we are going to replace mowing, what does that do to the overall picture of how these individuals work in other areas? And if they're going to work, and if we're going to have to downgrade those other areas, are those other areas going to be shopped out as well? And if they are, you have to start taking a look at your base value system. And you haven't done that yet. You haven't had that conversation as a council, which I think would be a great one to have, is where are our values at? What do we value as far as level of public service? What is it important for our community to be? And how do we want it represented? And I think, I mean, you're very clear on it. You don't leave anybody's imagination wondering where you are with this. I mean, you know, very clear. It's hard to say as a group, though, if the group wants to take a look at these various pieces, you know, it's a time to do it, absolutely.
But the reason I bring it up is one of the reasons we don't get very many ideas from this council in the last 18 months is every time someone brings an idea up that somebody externally doesn't like, we get beat up. We get beat up in the paper. And it isn't about us. None of this is about us. We should all wear a bag over our heads so nobody knows who we are and then discuss ideas. But it isn't done. They want to bastardize the messenger. I mean, it just, so we've had very little conversation about a lot of topics in the last 12 to 18 months because of that reason. I'm going to get beat up tomorrow. I'm going to be perceived as this guy with the black hat, and it's just going to happen. And when I mention these ideas, and it's just an idea, I just want to talk about it. We just want to discuss ideas. Everybody shuts up because we get clobbered for talking about ideas. And it's all about ideas. We should forget the people factor in here completely. None of us up here at this table have ill intentions for Wilmer. Not one of us. I bust my butt, as the rest of these people do, trying to do what's best for Wilmer, and we get shot at. I mean, and I'm tired of it. So this idea I bring forward because no one else will. And I think it's time to look at it because of the attrition thing you talk about. And I'm not saying we need to cut jobs today or tomorrow. You would do it through attrition. But we have to rethink what we're doing. Like Mr. Dawkins said, the new normal. We can't keep spending money the same way we spend it. $4.19 for gas today. What's that going to do to our police department budget, our fire department, our public works? These things happen, and we need to come up with ideas to combat them. I think you heard me.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, I do may interrupt just for a second.
Yes.
It's almost been 2 hours, and it's a long time for the people here and the citizens to listen, the staff, everybody here. Is this something that needs to continue, or do you want to take a recess? Or do you want to continue the conversation, or you want to receive it for information, or you want to summarize this and refer it back to the committee for further discussion and recommendations? What's the, I think to move this along, it's, 2 hours is long enough. Go, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I think this is a topic, we've got the two topics that we're talking about. I think we need to try to get some resolution on the engineering thing. You know, not tonight, but I think that needs to be a priority.
I agree, that is priority.
Soon. The rest of the study, we need to digest and try to figure out, you know, what it means to us and how we go forward. But I would think we bring this engineering thing back to committee and try to come to a consensus on that at committee level.
I agree. That was the major emphasis for the Fersman Group to be here, was so we could concentrate on getting that position filled and see what we're going to do with it. And that was the primary objective for this meeting and for the preliminary report. Is there any other discussion on this? I'd like to summarize it and move it forward with the next topic, and unless there's any other discussion.
When did we get a report, when did we get this report to the city administrator?
Last week.
It came directly from the consultant to you.
Yeah, I sent it out last Wednesday.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else want to speak here briefly? If not, more questions later.
All right, and, well, let me know if I can, you know, I'm, just my 30-second closing then is I spoke about the other parts of the report we're still working on, and we'll have that forward as well. And I'll work with the council to see what the best format would be for that, for presentation. We're kind of leaving the part one for later, how we're going to deal with it. But part two, which is the engineering, and this part of and part three, which is the rest of the services, I'll be bringing part three forward. And comments that I got, I'll try and incorporate any kind of changes.
Okay. Thank you very much. I have some other thoughts. I'll email them to you, Mr. Fersman. Not, this discussion is over. I'd like to relieve Mr. and Mrs. Fersman from any further questions and move on to the next item on the agenda. Item number on the agenda, thank you very much. I appreciate the public for your input. Give us a call. Your opinions are important to us. Call the mayor and council or city staff on any issues you may have. And that is the item number 4 on the agenda is the custodial maintenance position. Ms. Stevens?
Yes, the city has had a contract with ServiceMaster for facilities maintenance, and that's been in place for just over a year. The total cost of that contract during this period has been $51,419. We've been dealing with this for a while and trying to resolve some of the service level issues in terms of quality and the level of service. We have looked at other potential vendors. Those costs are estimated to be approximately $47,000 in talking to some other potential vendors. The staff recommendation is that we actually consider going back to hiring an in-house custodian. If we were to hire in the range 1 of the custodian, the approximate cost would be $35,900 to $45,600, and that is inclusive of benefits. The range there is based upon whether it would be a single benefit package or a family benefit. If a custodian were hired even up to the range 3, again, the cost would be $41,500 up to $51,273. We did attempt to contract this service in good faith. We've tried to manage this contract in good faith. We've just continued to have problems with it. And more importantly, we haven't achieved the desired for cost savings. So the recommendation is from staff is that we go back to and fill the custodial position for custodial maintenance. We have had 3 custodians in the past. We feel that that is what it takes, and that the internal cost would be lower than the contracted cost, and we would retain more control over the service, both, frankly, over the quality of the service. And in addition to the information provided by staff, there was a letter that was brought to staff by the advisory committee at the Wilmer Community and Activity Center, which is one of the locations where we've had the contracted services. That's kind of the last page in the attachment, and they also are expressing their dissatisfaction with the level and quality of service at that particular facility. And the facilities that have been contracted out have been the community, the Wilmer Community Activity Center, the firehouse. Although we have we have terminated that portion of the contract again for quality of service and decided to try to do that in-house. We did have the airport in that contract. That contract, we eliminated that when we went to a different setup at the airport and wrapped that into the airport manager contract. So that is still a contract of service at the airport, but it is done by the airport management company rather than a separate custodial service. And then they are currently at the Public Works facility as well. And again, at our remaining facilities, we've just not been satisfied with the level of service from the vendor. We think we've exhausted really all options to improve that service with the current vendor, and we don't think we're going to achieve the cost savings with a new vendor.
Thank you for the update and information, Charlene. Questions from the committee? Recommendation from staff is, excuse me, Mr. Christensen.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I read through this earlier, but I'm not sure, I'm not ready to make a decision on this. There may be some more information that we could have. You know, we've had the one cleaning service, my service master. Have we had any other bids at all? Have we, are we looking for some RFPs from someone else? And why wouldn't the, you know, the letter we got in here work for us? I mean, that comes to $22,000 some a year with their monthly fee.
We did seek another proposal from West Central Industries, which is a vendor we've used in the past, and that is the cost of approximately $47,000. So again, when you compare that to the cost of the internal internal, we don't think we'll achieve the cost savings.
Where is that $47,000? Where do I see it?
It's the proposal is attached, and the summation is in the memo from.
Yeah,
Is that number in here somewhere?
it's $3,719 a month plus tax, and that does not include windows, carpets, and the major deep cleaning of floors or any of the surface work at the auditorium.
Have we had complaints, besides from staff, on, you say in the public, we owe it to them here to have clean places in the city. Have we had complaints filed, called in, or written to the city?
Yes, on the community
public?
center, the users of that facility have complained about the level and the quality of services, and those complaints have been made to our staff. At the Public Works, you know, that's an internal service, but our employees are just, you know, and our view of that too is that it's not satisfactory in cleaning of that facility. And I believe that was also the case, and that was the case at the firehouse as well. And I think we also did have complaints regarding the airport when that was under the same service.
Absolutely. Quite frankly, when we have vendors come into Public Works, it's embarrassing what they have to see for conditions from this cleaning service. They're pretty adept at just moving the dirt around and not removing it. And we've tried communication with logs. We've tried frequent phone calls. The problem is the help turns over. I think at the Public Works Garage now, in the last 14 months or 13 months, they've had 9 or 10 different service master employees out there. And there's no dedication, there's no connection to the job.
And we've met with the regional manager. I mean, we've really feel we've exhausted all of our options to improve the level of service.
But they aren't the only cleaning service around. I mean, there's others. I don't know if we've ever gotten responses from RFPs for others.
When we initially contracted this out, I believe we had 3 vendors. Service Master was the lowest vendor. Their references, you know, were acceptable, so that's why we recommended and engaged in that contract. And then we have, you know, checked with West Central Industries because that's a vendor that we have used in the, you know, in the past or on to assist us even during vacation periods. And you know, their service, their quality is good and good, and their estimated cost is $47,000.
I'm still not ready to hire a full-time person for this. Is any of the departments clean anything themselves? I mean, if there's something that needs to be cleaned, do you just walk by it? I mean, whether it's at Public Works or the fire station or I mean, there's got to be some pride in working there, too. I mean, my guys clean up the job sites so we can be proud of them. I mean, I don't hire somebody to come over and clean them up, even when
Well,
somebody...
certainly our employees take pride in their jobs and take pride in their workplaces.
I'm not saying they don't get me wrong, but
But, in some cases, like the community center, that's a public facility. We're not just cleaning up after employees. I mean, and we have one employee that is out there part-time for those activities, which is our activities director.
that's Leanne.
That's Leanne. And so, and we have our other custodians do the setup and the maintenance of that facility. We have a custodian that cleans the city hall facility. And our public works employees, I mean, again, they take pride in their work and they take pride in their office, in their space but we also ask them to be out in the community providing the services in terms of roads, in terms of park maintenance and such. And so I believe that the custodial services is a function of, as an employer, that we need to provide our employees clean and appropriate places to work as well as the public. And it's not just something we can do on the side, each individual employee. I mean, this is about sanitizing restrooms and sanitizing surfaces and cleaning, floors and windows and such. I mean, and, there is enough of that it is full-time work, whether that's contracted or in-house. But again, the staff, at this point, we've not been successful with the contracting option.
Sometimes
We can explore it again, but we've not been successful to date.
Our staff does do all the cleaning in the garage areas, the maintenance areas, at the wastewater treatment plant. The only thing that Service Master has done has been the office area and the conference room. So, I think that the employees do keep the facilities clean, and the other option would be to rewrite some job descriptions to put janitorial responsibilities on the employees and take time away from their other duties.
that might be part of the new normal. Sometimes when you hire the lowest bidder, you don't get the best job done either. I mean, I'm sure it came through us and we hired them. And we all know that, but I'm not knocking the employees. In case you read it in the paper tomorrow, I'm not knocking the employees. We got very good employees at the city of Wilmer. But I still believe in contracting out whatever we can, if it's cleaning or mowing. And I wish some of this maybe would have been brought to our committee and maybe showed us some pictures of, here, this is what it looks like after they're done cleaning it. I mean, some of the complaints, I've never heard any, and they've never been brought to our committee from what I know. But anyway, that's my comments.
Thank you.
Gotta think about
Appreciate it. Anybody else, Mr. Anderson or Jim? Yes.
It seems as though we heard at a full council meeting within the last 2 months a report that the cleaning was unacceptable, and what were we going to do about it? This is a case where we took the lowest bidder, and it didn't work. You would go to the next highest bidder, who knows, but we know what it's going to cost us to do it on our own. So we're back to this discussion again: should we hire or should we not hire? And it seems to me we gave it a good faith effort. I think we should just hire a janitor and get the job done. That's a critical place out there. There's a lot of people that go in and out of there. A lot of folks that are in and out of there. Meetings and civic organizations. That needs to be a show place, not a dump.
Anyone else? Any action want to be taken by the group?
Excuse me, Councilmember Amon, I believe there's someone here who would like to speak, if you'd like to allow that.
Please come forward.
Thanks. I'm Merle Knutson. I live in Wilmer, and for the past 2 years or a little over, I've been on the advisory board for the community center. So I've heard many discussions about the situation with the cleaning service. And one of the things that I can remember that comes up is that a custodian will show some initiative. If a light bulb needs to be changed, he'll change it. And whereas if the cleaning service, they kind of follow the detailed written instructions to some extent. They don't always follow them. And have to make quite a few phone calls, say you missed this item. And it's not been a good situation, I would say, for cleaning the building. And for other light duty maintenance that cleaning people don't do. So the hope is that a custodian would show some more initiative, get more involved with the building, and take on take some initiative to do some of these jobs that a cleaning service would rather not do. They just do what their understanding of the job and then leave.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Anderson.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And we have one other comment. Please give your name. Appreciate it.
Chair, I'm Pat Curry, and I live at 1307 West Grace. I'm one of the people that he talked about before. I'm a citizen, and I think all of you've taken a beating. I think you're doing a hell of a job, including Charlene, the mayor, and I applaud all of you. I'm on the board of
Airport Commission.
well, I'm on the airport commission. I mean, yes, I am. But I'd like to have said that in front of everybody. But you asked before, public comment before anything was said about these people that spoke. It's sort of difficult.
Oh, I'm sorry.
If you would have done that when all of these people were here, maybe there's others that would have gotten up. But I just want to say that I go to a lot of meetings, and you people, I look, Steve Bauman, Jim Duncan, Dennis Anderson, and this is Ron Christensen. This is just one meeting. I just think you're doing a great job. So if that comes out in the paper tomorrow, I wished it would. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Appreciate it. Getting back to the agenda at hand.
I would move the recommendation to hire a Range 1 custodian.
We have a motion on the floor.
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion on the recommendation? Mr. Christensen.
Not discussion, just a comment. Some of my issues with this issue have to do with the trust relationship, okay?
On the
That's
custodian.
all I'll say.
No further discussion. We'll call for the question on the motion. The motion is that we would hire a level 1 custodian through the city for the city of Wilmer. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion is carried. Old business, or do we have any old business? New business? That completes our agenda items unless there's anything else needs to be discussed. We have one, Earl, you want one other comment?
I'd just like to echo the comments our previous commenter had. I do applaud the work that you do. I know that you're trying to balance things, and I know it's not easy. I am sure that you always hear the things that go wrong and the complaints. You don't necessarily hear the plaudits, and I thank you. Thank you all.
I would ask that we talk to the paper.
If not, call for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
We're adjourned.